Commander Ileana Chen gripped the control panel of the Odysseus as cascading lights erupted across the viewport. 7 vessels materialized from hyperspace, each massive enough to engulf her exploration ship 3 times over. Fascinating architecture, Lieutenant Patel whispered beside her. Those aren't weapons ports. They're observation bays. Chen nodded, maintaining outward calm while her mind raced through emergency protocols. Broadcast on all frequencies. First contact package. Diplomatic channels open. Before Patel could comply, the command deck illuminated with swirling particles that coalesced into a translucent, crystalline figure nearly 3 meters tall. Commander Chen, the being spoke, its voice resonating without sound. I am Ambassador Xorix of the Galactic Conquests. We've been monitoring your species for some time. The ambassador's form shimmered as it gestured toward the stars. Humanity has accomplished in centuries what took others millennia. Your adaptability intrigues us. You speak our language, Chen responded, measuring each word, and know our names. Xorix's crystal facets pulsed with blue light. We've studied your transmissions. Your planet, what you call Earth, is classified in our records as a Class 12 death world. No other sentient species has evolved under such brutal conditions. Death world. Patel couldn't hide his surprise. Extreme temperature variations, high gravity, atmospheric toxins, countless apex predators. Xorix's form flickered with what might have been admiration. Most sentient life evolves in stable environments. Yours forged itself through constant threat. 6 hours later, Chen found herself aboard the Conquests' diplomatic vessel, surrounded by representatives of 7 species that had maintained peace across 3 spiral arms for over 50,000 years. Engineers from the Odysseus wandered the reception hall, marveling at technology centuries beyond Earth's capabilities. A tall, insectoid being approached Chen, its carapace adorned with intricate markings. I am War Master Talon of the Vesperi Defense Force. It clicked through a translator. Your species appears soft. Appearances can be deceiving, Chen replied with a diplomatic smile. The War Master's compound eyes gleamed. Perhaps, though I find it difficult to imagine creatures without natural armor surviving real combat. Across the hall, a human engineer named Rodriguez reached toward an ornate object hovering above a pedestal, fascinated by its pulsing core. Desecration. A Vesperi guard lunged forward, weapon extending from its exoskeleton. 2 more guards flanked it, moving with blinding speed toward the unwitting human. Chen reacted without conscious thought. 3 strides brought her between Rodriguez and the approaching guards. She sidestepped the first guard's strike, using its momentum to send it crashing into the second. The third swung a blade-like appendage at her head. Chen dropped, sweeping its legs while grabbing a serving tray from a passing drone. As the guard stumbled, she struck precisely at the joint between carapace segments. All 3 Vesperi lay immobilized in less than 8 seconds. Silence fell across the reception hall. Xorix's crystalline form dimmed with shock. Medical staff rushed forward to attend to the guards, while security formed a perimeter around Chen. War Master Talon observed from across the room, mandibles twitching in what might have been surprise or calculation. Fascinating. He finally clicked. It seems the Death World natives have learned to compensate for their disadvantages. As Chen helped Rodriguez retreat from the scene, she caught Talon studying footage of the encounter on a holographic display. The Concordat thinks of us as primitives, she whispered to her engineer. Let's hope that misconception works in our favor. 3 days after the reception incident, Commander Chen found herself summoned to a private chamber aboard the Concordat flagship. The space was dimly lit, with holographic battle simulations playing silently on every wall. Your combat display has caused quite the stir, War Master Talon said, dismissing his guards with a flick of his segmented limb. Some call for your imprisonment. Others wish to study your techniques. Chen remained expressionless. And what do you wish, War Master? The insectoid's mandibles clicked twice, a sound her translator didn't interpret. An opportunity. The Concordat faces challenges that require unconventional approaches. A holographic display materialized between them. 7 glowing pillars representing the Concordat species, with an 8th, dimmer pillar labeled Humanity. The Rite of 7 Challenges, Talon explained. An ancient tradition whereby new species prove their worth through combat trials. Victory earns humanity immediate placement on our Security Council and Joint Fleet Command. And if we refuse, then centuries of bureaucratic integration await your species. Perhaps your great-grandchildren might earn observer status. Back on Earth, the United Nations Security Council deliberated for less than 6 hours before transmitting their answer. Humanity would accept the challenge. Selection of Earth's representatives took longer. Eventually, 5 names emerged from thousands of candidates worldwide. Commander Chen, tactical genius and veteran of 3 campaigns in the Mars Rebellion. Her file noted she'd never lost a strategic simulation, even against quantum supercomputers. Major Jackson Wade, former Special Forces operative who'd once survived 3 weeks behind enemy lines with nothing but a pocket knife and dental floss. His psychological evaluation simply read, refuses to acknowledge no-win scenarios. Dr. Maya Okafor, xenobiologist whose groundbreaking work on convergent evolution had predicted alien physiologies with startling accuracy. She'd also designed half the hand-to-hand combat techniques taught to Earth's elite military units. Sergeant Kai Tanaka, weapons specialist who could build a functioning railgun from scrap electronics. Marine still told stories about the time he defended an outpost with homemade explosives and repurposed mining equipment. Cole Fletcher, civilian parkour expert whose gravity-defying feats had gone viral even on Concordat worlds. He'd never served in the military but could navigate urban environments faster than any recorded sentient species. These 5 against champions from 7 advanced civilizations. Human Secretary Zhao asked the assembled council. The odds seem perfect, interrupted General Alvarez. They think we're sending warriors. We're sending survivors. The human team departed Earth aboard a Concordat transport vessel, accompanied by diplomatic staff and minimal support personnel. 4 days into their journey, emergency alarms blared through the ship. Distress signal, the Quarian pilot explained. 4 arms working controls simultaneously. Research station outreach has gone silent. The transport diverted course, dropping out of hyperspace near a floating structure partially obscured by asteroid debris. Chen noticed the pilot's appendages trembling. "What's wrong?" she asked. "The station's outer hull. Those patterns are consistent with Vrex attack signatures," the pilot whispered. "Vrex." Major Wade leaned forward. "Not in our briefing materials." Before the pilot could respond, War Master Talon's voice cut through the comms. "Maintain distance. Recovery teams inbound." Chen exchanged glances with her team. "Permission to assist with search and rescue." A long pause followed. "Granted," Talon finally responded, "but proceed with extreme caution." This wasn't planned. The human team boarded the station through a maintenance airlock, environmental suits sealed against the thin atmosphere. Inside, they found evidence of a massacre. And something more. When Talon's forces arrived an hour later, they discovered the humans had not only survived, but had recovered encrypted research data that the Concordat's own scouts had missed. The War Master studied Chen with new intensity. "Perhaps," he clicked softly, "there is more to Death World natives than we anticipated." The Vesperi training moon orbited a gas giant, its artificial gravity calibrated to match 17 different homeworlds. Training facilities stretched across vast underground complexes designed to accommodate physiologies ranging from silicon-based giants to methane-breathing floaters. None were designed for humans. Again, barked the lithoid instructor, its crystalline form glittering under harsh lights. Sergeant Tanaka struggled to his feet, muscles trembling from exertion. The strength assessment chamber had been calibrated for beings who could bench press small vehicles. "This is pointless," Tanaka muttered, gripping the resistance bars once more. "Their minimum setting is 3 times Earth gravity." Across the facility, similar scenes played out. Major Wade emerged from mental resistance training with bloodshot eyes and a nosebleed, having faced telepathic assaults from Medusan instructors. Fletcher crumpled against a wall after his fifth attempt at a zero-gravity obstacle course designed for four-armed Quarians. Even Commander Chen, despite her perfect tactical scores, failed physical assessments designed for species with natural armor or redundant organs. Only Dr. Okafor seemed unbothered by the constant failures, obsessively recording each training session and working through the nights in their shared quarters. "You should rest," Chen told her on the third evening, finding the xenobiologist surrounded by holographic displays. "Look at this," Okafor replied, eyes bright despite her exhaustion. She gestured at side-by-side comparisons of alien physiologies and their training methodologies. Each Concordat species evolved perfect specializations for specific environments. The lithoids developed crystalline bodies on high-gravity worlds. Vesperi gained exoskeletons and compound eyes for precise spatial awareness. Medusans evolved telepathy on a world of constant toxic fog, while we evolved as generalists on a planet that tried to kill us in new ways every few thousand years. Chen realized, seeing the pattern emerge. Exactly. Okafor manipulated the displays, showing human evolutionary history alongside weapons development. We're trying to compete as specialists, but our advantage is adaptability. By morning, the human quarters had been transformed. Training equipment lay disassembled and reconfigured. Walls displayed combat techniques from dozens of Earth cultures: Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Krav Maga, Silat, Sistema, alongside anatomical charts of Concordat species. The Vesperi instructor that arrived to collect them froze in the doorway, mandibles clicking in confusion. "What is this disorder?" it demanded. "Innovation," Chen replied simply. "We're ready for today's assessments." What followed astonished the alien observers. Instead of attempting to match lithoid strength, Tanaka used modified judo techniques to leverage the crystalline being's weight against itself. Wade entered mental combat with the Medusans using compartmentalization methods developed by Earth's special forces to withstand torture. Fletcher approached the zero-gravity course not as a series of handholds but as momentum vectors, borrowing techniques from free divers and gymnasts. "They're adapting our own training systems," whispered one instructor to another as human performance scores climbed from abysmal to respectable in a single day. From an observation chamber, Varax, the War Master's aide, watched with growing interest. The slender Vesperi activated a secure communication channel. "War Master, you should see this," he reported. "The humans have completely rewritten their approach overnight." A long pause followed before Talon responded. "Continue observation. Tell the instructors to increase difficulty by 30%. With respect, that exceeds safety protocols for." "Do it," Talon interrupted. "I want to see if they break or adapt again." As alarms signaled the next training rotation, the human team huddled briefly. "They're going to make it harder," Chen warned. "Good," Fletcher grinned, stretching sore muscles. "Now that we know how they think, we can start showing them how humans fight." Dr. Okafor nodded, adding another note to her growing database. "Remember, they're perfect specialists in unchanging environments. We're imperfect generalists from a world of constant change." "And that," Major Wade added with a grim smile, "is why they'll never see us coming." The formal trials began on the seventh day. Spectators from across the Concordat gathered in the grand arena, holographic displays magnifying the action for billions watching throughout the 7 systems. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation as Commander Chen stepped onto the combat platform to face her first opponent. Dominar Krell, champion of the lithoids, stomped forward in powered battle armor that amplified his already formidable strength. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, with crystalline limbs capable of shattering steel, he had never lost a match in 2 centuries of competition. "For your safety, human, you may concede before we begin." Krell's rumbling voice echoed through the arena. Chen's reply was barely audible in comparison. "Thank you for your concern." The starting chime resonated, and Krell charged with surprising speed for his massive frame. Chen didn't attempt to block or dodge. Instead, she retreated in a specific pattern, leading the behemoth through a series of turns. "Is she running?" murmured confused spectators. Alien bookmakers, who had given the humans 1,000-to-1 odds, began nervously adjusting their calculations as Chen's strategy became clear. With each turn, she led Krell into narrower passages of the combat arena, until the lithoid's powered armor became wedged between walls too close for his frame to navigate. "This violates the spirit of direct combat," protested the lithoid representative on the judging panel. "The rules specify victory by incapacitation," countered the Quarian judge. "The human has rendered her opponent immobile using only the provided environment." When Major Wade entered the mental combat chamber to face the Medusan telepath, spectators expected quick defeat. Medusans could overwhelm most species' neural patterns within seconds. Wade sat cross-legged before his opponent, eyes closed in apparent meditation. The Medusan's tentacled head began pulsing with bioluminescent patterns, the visible sign of psychic assault. Minutes passed. Wade's vital signs remained steady. "Impossible," the Medusan finally whispered, slumping in exhaustion. "How do you compartmentalize your thoughts so completely?" Wade opened his eyes. "Humans call it the gray box technique. Special forces operatives learn it to withstand torture." The most spectacular upset came when Fletcher faced the Quarian agility champion in a three-dimensional obstacle course. Instead of following the designated pathway of handholds and platforms suspended throughout the zero-gravity chamber, Fletcher launched himself at seemingly impossible angles, finding minute imperfections in supposedly smooth surfaces and using conservation of momentum in ways that visibly confused the Quarian observers. "He's treating the entire chamber as one continuous surface," commented Dr. Okafor to Surgeon Tanaka as they watched. "Parkour principles applied to three-dimensional space." Fletcher completed the course in record time, leaving his four-armed opponent trapped in a section designed to be navigated only with Quarian reach and flexibility. After each victory, the human team gathered to share insights, collectively adapting their strategies for upcoming challenges. Alien bookmakers frantically recalculated odds as humanity's win record grew. That evening, during a small celebration in their quarters, a shadow fell across the doorway. The Medusan ambassador stood there, tentacles writhing nervously. "May I speak with you privately, Commander Chen?" The telepathic being projected directly into her mind. Chen followed the ambassador to a secure chamber, shielded from surveillance. "The trials are not what they appear," the Medusan began, its mental voice tinged with anxiety. "The Vrex have already conquered 3 border worlds. Their hive mind tactics overwhelmed our specialized defenses. The research station wasn't a coincidence," Chen realized. "The War Master is desperate," confirmed the ambassador. "The Concordat has maintained peace so long, we've forgotten how to wage effective war. These trials aren't about your place on the council. They're about finding species who can help us fight the coming invasion." Chen's expression remained neutral, but her mind raced with implications. "Why tell me this?" The Medusan's bioluminescent patterns dimmed. "Because tomorrow's trials will be far more dangerous than advertised. The War Master wants to see how humans perform under genuine threat." "Thank you for the warning," Chen replied calmly. "But if there's one thing humans understand perfectly, it's how to face genuine threats." Commander Chen shared the Medusan's warning with her team during their pre-sleep briefing. Their quarters felt different now, both sanctuary and potential trap. "I studied Vesperi assassination techniques," Dr. Okafor explained, checking environmental controls. "They favor toxins that simulate natural failures. We should establish wash rotations." Major Wade nodded grimly. "I'll take first shift." 4 hours into the station's artificial night cycle, Surgeon Tanaka jolted awake to blaring alarms. The air had taken on a greenish tinge, burning his lungs with each breath. "Life support malfunction," he shouted, already moving. While the others scrambled for emergency breathing apparatus, Tanaka sprinted toward the ventilation controls at the far wall. Without hesitation, he plunged his hands into the chemical fog pouring from the duct, manually overriding the emergency protocols. Caustic compounds seared his skin as he twisted the mechanism shut. By the time Fletcher reached him with a breather mask, Tanaka's hands were covered in chemical burns. "Worth it," he gasped as Dr. Okafor applied emergency treatment. "Got a sample of whatever they used." Chen examined the environmental panel. This wasn't a malfunction. Someone reconfigured the atmospheric mix to match Vesperi toxic habitation zones. Classic deniability, Wade confirmed. If we died, they'd blame improper human settings. Before they could report the sabotage, a massive explosion rocked the station. Emergency bulkheads slammed down as decompression warnings blared throughout the facility. "That wasn't meant for us," Fletcher said, checking the station schematic on a wall display. "That hit the command center. We're under attack." The station's communication system crackled to life with fragmented distress calls and combat orders in multiple languages. Through the chaos, they identified a critical fact. Vrex boarding parties had breached the hull, methodically targeting command and defense centers. The station's response is fragmented, Chen observed, listening to the confused communications. Each species is following their own protocols instead of coordinating. While alien commanders debated jurisdiction over secured channels, the human team acted. Despite his injured hands, Tanaka converted cleaning supplies and medical compounds into rudimentary explosives. Fletcher studied maintenance schematics, identifying passages too small for most alien anatomies. "I can reach the secondary communication hub through these maintenance tunnels," he explained, pointing to narrow shafts winding between decks. "From there, we can coordinate station-wide defense." "Take these." Tanaka handed him 3 improvised charges. "Place them at junction points to slow their advance." Wade organized civilian aliens sheltering near their quarters, using furniture and equipment to create defensive barricades. "Form teams of 3. He instructed a mixed group of Quarians and Medusans, 1 to sense approaching threats, 2 to react. Chen hacked into the station's agricultural systems, reprogramming fertilizer drones to deliver Tanaka's explosive compounds to strategic locations. Dr. Okafor analyzed station sensor data, mapping Vrex movement patterns. "They're avoiding certain sections," she noted, highlighting routes on a handwritten map spread across the floor. "Something about these areas disrupts their coordination." 90 minutes into the attack, Fletcher crawled through a ventilation shaft barely wider than his shoulders, placing the last explosive at a critical junction. Through a grate, he observed 6 Vrex warriors, insectoid creatures with synchronized movements, suggesting hive mind connection. As he reached for his detonator, a Vrex suddenly turned toward his position, compound eyes focusing on the grate. Fletcher froze, controlling even his breathing as sweat trickled down his face. The Vrex chittered something to its companions. All 6 turned toward the shaft. Fletcher thumbed the detonator. 3 decks below, Warmaster Talon fought his way through chaos toward the human quarters, 4 elite guards flanking him. He'd expected to find the Death World natives huddled in defensive positions, perhaps even dead from the sabotage his rivals had arranged without his knowledge. Instead, he found Commander Chen directing the station's defense from a makeshift command center, using a hand-drawn map and communication system built from kitchen equipment. Civilian aliens from 7 species followed her orders without question. The most surprising sight, the Vrex attack had been completely repelled from this quadrant. Fascinating approach, Talon clicked, mandibles twitching with what might have been admiration. "You didn't wait for proper authorization." Chen didn't look up from her improvised tactical display. "Proper authorization gets people killed. Adaptation keeps them alive." The Concordat Council convened in emergency session 48 hours after the station attack. 7 massive holographic projections loomed over the circular chamber, each representing a member species' homeworld. An 8th projection, smaller and flickering unstably, showed Earth. Reports from border outposts scrolled across information panels. 3 more colonies fallen, A science vessel destroyed. Communication relays compromised. The Vrex advance accelerated with each victory. Commander Chen and her team stood silently as the council debated. Their presence was unprecedented. No species in trial status had ever attended such high-level deliberations. "We must fortify the core worlds," boomed the lithoid representative, his crystalline form pulsing with agitation. "Our planetary defense systems can withstand sustained assault." "Foolish," countered the Medusan diplomat. "We should focus on intelligence gathering. The Vrex cannot attack what they cannot find." The Vesperi military commander slammed a segmented limb against the podium. "Immediate counterattack. Strike their supply lines before they consolidate their gains." As arguments escalated, Chen studied the tactical displays. Each species advocated strategies aligned with their evolutionary strengths: static defense, stealth, coordinated assault. None seemed to grasp the comprehensive approach needed. "The humans have insight," War Master Talon suddenly announced, silencing the chamber. "They repelled the Vrex when our own defenses failed. Let them speak." All eyes turned to the human delegation. Chen stepped forward, nodding to Dr. Okafor, who activated a data crystal recovered from the research station. Holographic projections transformed, displaying Earth's military history, from stone axes to nuclear weapons, from Roman legions to guerrilla fighters, from naval battles to orbital defense platforms. In the span of 5,000 years, Chen began, humans progressed from bronze spears to interplanetary warfare. In just the last 2 centuries, we developed and abandoned dozens of military doctrines. She highlighted key conflicts across human history. We've always been outmatched by our environments and predators, but survived through adaptation. When facing superior forces, we changed the nature of conflict itself. Major Wade stepped forward, pointing to specific battle reconstructions. "Your species evolved perfect adaptations for specific environments and developed specialized military doctrines to match. Humans evolved as generalists on a planet that constantly tried to kill us." Dr. Okafor took over, displaying the intercepted Vrex communications she had analyzed. The Vrex, like concordat species, are evolutionary specialists. Their hive mind provides perfect coordination but limits innovation. They study your tactics, identify patterns, and counter accordingly. She highlighted attack sequences no one had detected. They're using your own predictability against you. Each concordat species responds exactly as their military doctrine dictates, exactly as the Vrex anticipate. Murmurs spread through the chamber as council members recognized the truth in her words. "What do you propose?" asked the Quarian representative, 4 arms gesturing with agitation. Chen moved to the central display, bringing up a galactic map. "Stop fighting as 7 separate species with 7 separate doctrines. Combine approaches unpredictably. When the Vrex adapt to one tactic, switch to another." Sergeant Tanaka, hands still bandaged from chemical burns, pointed to specific sectors. "The Vrex expect lithoid fortifications here. Vesperi strikes there. Give them neither and both. Make them fight humans. Adaptable, unpredictable, impossible to categorize." Fletcher nodded, adding, "They'll study your movements, expecting patterns. Don't give them any." Silence fell as the council absorbed their words. The lithoid representative finally spoke, voice rumbling like shifting stone. "You suggest we abandon millennia of proven military doctrine for improvisation." "Exactly," Chen confirmed without hesitation. "The Vrex evolved perfect responses to predictable threats. They have no defense against unpredictability itself. And this approach succeeds on your world." The Medusan inquired. Major Wade's smile held no humor. Every dominant military power in human history was eventually defeated by opponents who refused to fight according to established rules. War Master Talon studied the humans with newfound respect. "The trials are hereby suspended," he announced. "These Death World natives have already proven themselves the deadliest warriors we have encountered." He turned to address the full council. "The question is no longer whether humans deserve a place among us, but whether we are worthy to learn from them. The Concordat fleet assembled at the edge of the Helios Nebula, a swirling mass of cosmic dust that obscured them from Vrek's long-range sensors. 300 vessels of various designs and capabilities formed the largest military force gathered in 50,000 years of Concordat history. And at its heart, 5 humans directed preparations for war. Major Wade moved through the hangar bay of the flagship, instructing mixed teams of Vesperi and Quarian boarding specialists. "Conventional formations make you predictable," he explained, rearranging their practice maneuvers. "Split into asymmetric groups. 3 Vesperi for precision, 2 Quarians for mobility, operating independently but converging simultaneously." The elite warriors, initially resistant to instruction from a physically weaker species, now followed his direction without question. The station attack had proven humans knew something about combat that the Concordat had forgotten. On the engineering deck, Fletcher worked alongside Quarian technicians, redesigning ship interiors for defensive flexibility. "Create unpredictable pathways," he demonstrated, removing panels to reveal maintenance shafts. "When Vrek's board, they'll expect standard defensive positions. Give them maze-like alternatives that force them to adapt." In the medical bay, Dr. Okafor collaborated with Medusan scientists, developing countermeasures targeting the Vrek's hive mind communication. "Their strength is perfect coordination," she noted, analyzing neural patterns from captured Vrek's drones. "Disrupt this frequency range, and they lose tactical cohesion." Sergeant Tanaka, hands healed but bearing permanent chemical scars, trained lithoid heavy weapons teams in human guerrilla tactics. "Don't stand and absorb punishment just because you can," he advised the crystalline beings. "Use your durability to launch high-risk attacks they won't expect from lithoid forces." Commander Chen stood on the bridge beside War Master Talon, studying tactical projections of the Vrek's advance toward Nexus Station, a critical communication hub connecting 3 spiral arms. "Your plan violates conventional doctrine," Talon observed as Chen rearranged fleet deployments. "Splitting our forces contradicts 5 millennia of Concordat tactical wisdom." "That's precisely why it will work," Chen replied. "The Vreks study your historical patterns and prepare accordingly. They've never encountered human naval strategies." She highlighted key formations based on Earth's maritime history: feints, false retreats, divided forces converging from unexpected vectors. Nelson at Trafalgar, Yamamoto at Midway, Lai Sun Shin's turtle ships. We'll draw from them all. The attack commenced at 600 hours, Station Standard Time. The Concordat fleet emerged from the nebula in formation patterns the Vreks had never encountered, communications running through frequencies their sensors couldn't track. When the initial assault stalled against unexpected Vreks defenses, Chen didn't hesitate. "Abandon Plan Alpha," she ordered across the command channel. "Implement Thermopylae Protocol." Concordat captains, drilled repeatedly in the human contingencies, immediately reconfigured their approach. The battle shifted from a standard engagement to a series of coordinated but seemingly chaotic strikes against Vrek's support vessels rather than their primary warships. The Vrek's hive mind, encountering tactics it couldn't categorize within its strategic database, began making unprecedented errors. Defensive screens shifted to counterattacks that never materialized, while actual incursions came from vectors they'd left exposed. The turning point came when Major Wade led a strike team onto the Vrek's command ship. Moving through access ways too narrow for Vrek's warriors, they'd reached the central neural node connecting the hive mind coordination system. "Plant disruptors here, here, and here," Wade directed his mixed species team, indicating key junction points. "When they activate, target isolated Vrek's units. Without hive connection, they can't improvise effective defenses." As the disruptors engaged, the effect rippled across the battlefield. Vrek's vessels began moving erratically, some colliding with each other as their perfect coordination dissolved. The fearsome warriors, renowned for their synchronization, found themselves reduced to disorganized targets. From the flagship's bridge, Chen and Talon watched as the Vrex fleet began a disorganized retreat. "They're not defeated," Chen cautioned. "They're withdrawing to analyze what happened and adapt." Talon's mandibles clicked in what had become recognizable as amusement. "Let them analyze. By the time they return, we'll have changed our approach again." For the first time in the conflict, the War Master appeared genuinely optimistic. "Perhaps," he added, studying the human commander with newfound respect, "there are advantages to evolving on a death world after all." 3 months after the battle at Nexus Station, the Concordat Grand Hall hosted a ceremony unprecedented in its 50,000-year history. The vast chamber, designed to accommodate representatives of every member species, now featured a new section, a smaller platform calibrated to Earth's gravity and atmosphere. Commander Chen stood before the assembled council, her team arrayed behind her. The burned scars on Tanaka's hands had become a symbol recognized throughout Concordat space. Humans' willingness to sacrifice physical safety for tactical advantage. "The Vrex have retreated beyond the Cygnus Arm," announced the Medusan speaker, bioluminescent patterns pulsing with formal dignity. "For the first time since the incursion began, Concordat borders are secure." Murmurs of approval rippled through the gathered representatives. The speaker continued, "This council has unanimously voted to establish a new division within our military structure, the Adaptation Command." War Master Talon stepped forward, mandibles clicking in formal salute. "Commander Chen will lead this division, with authority to implement training protocols across all Concordat forces." The decision had not come easily. Traditionalists among every species had protested placing a newcomer species in command. Yet the results spoke for themselves. The Vrex, previously unstoppable, had been driven back by tactics they couldn't predict or counter. "We recognize now what we failed to see before," the lithoid representative rumbled, crystalline form glittering in the chamber's light. "Perfect specialization creates perfect vulnerability. The human capacity for continuous adaptation is a weapon more powerful than any technology we possess." Chen stepped forward to receive the ceremonial blade of the Concordat, a weapon symbolic of military authority that had never left Vesperi possession in 11,000 years. "Humanity accepts this honor," she began, "not because we are stronger, faster, or more advanced, but because our greatest strength is embracing change itself." She gestured toward holographic displays, showing the ongoing integration of human tactics into Concordat training. Major Wade instructing mixed species squads in asymmetric warfare. Fletcher demonstrating environmental adaptation techniques to Quarian engineers. Dr. Okafor sharing biological insights with Medusan scientists. Tanaka teaching lithoid heavy units to become more mobile and unpredictable. On Earth, we evolve not by becoming perfect at any one thing, but by remaining adaptable to everything, Chen continued. While specialized species refined single evolutionary advantages over millions of years, humans faced constantly changing threats requiring constantly changing responses. As she spoke, strategic displays shifted to show intercepted Vrex communications. Dr. Okafor stepped forward to explain the significance. "They're already adapting to our tactics," she noted, highlighting pattern changes. "The Vrex Collective is redesigning their approach based on our recent engagements. Where once this news would have triggered alarm throughout the council, now it generated excited discussion. Representatives debated potential counter-adaptations, drawing on human historical examples and their own specialized knowledge. "Let them adapt," War Master Talon declared, mandibles clicking with what had become recognizable as satisfaction. "The Vrex evolve over millennia through genetic adaptation. The Concordat evolves through technological advancement over centuries." He turned to Chen with a gesture of respect that transcended species differences. "But humans evolve their methods overnight. And now so shall we." As the ceremony concluded, Chen joined her team in a private chamber overlooking the capital city's crystalline spires. Earth was visible as a distant blue point in the night sky. "They still don't fully understand what makes us different," Fletcher observed, watching alien representatives discussing new tactical doctrines. Dr. Okafor smiled. They're learning. The Concordat spent 50,000 years perfecting what worked. We spent 10,000 years discarding what didn't. The deadliest warriors aren't those with the best weapons or strongest bodies, Wade added, but those who never stop finding new ways to fight. Chen looked out at the stars, thinking of humanity's long history of conflict, adaptation, and survival against impossible odds. For millennia, humans had lamented their biological limitations compared to Earth's specialized predators. Now, among the stars, those same limitations had proven to be their greatest strength. "We're teaching them something crucial," she said quietly. "Evolution never ends. The moment you stop adapting is the moment you begin going extinct." Tanaka raised a glass in his scared hand. "To humanity, the deadliest warriors in the universe. Not because we're born perfect, but because we never stop changing." The team finished together, a simple truth that had rewritten the future of interstellar warfare.